Hello, I'm Guru Scott. On this video, I'm going to be installing a new hot water heater. Now, this old hot water heater here, it's about 11 years old. It's only a 6-year water heater. As you can see, it was made in USA. You can tell because the sticker is crooked. Anyway, it's lasted well over a 6-year lifespan because I put anode rods in it, which helped extend its life. It's a gas hot water heater. So I went out and bought a new one, and I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, here's the box with my new hot water heater in it. It's got a 12-year life. It's made by GE in Mexico. It comes with an anode rod already installed in it. I'm going to change that out, and I'll show you all that in a minute. And the reason I picked this one, even though it's made in Mexico, is because it has a brass drain valve. So that's important for me because my other one had a plastic one and it broke. So I'm going to show you some of the tools I think we're going to need, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's some of the basic tools we're going to use to get started with. One thing is we're going to have to use a torch to heat up the pipes, to sweat the pipes. And not shown in the video here at the moment is I'm going to have a fire extinguisher handy just in case. It's always good to have that. You're going to need some plumber's sanding cloth to sand down any copper pieces and clean them up. You're going to need some paste flux made for plumbing. You need plumber's solder, various kind of plumber's thread sealant, pipe cutters. Also, you're going to need both yellow and white Teflon tape. The yellow is for gas lines, the white is for non-gas lines. A lockout tagout to lock out the gas line outside. You're going to need a 1 1/16 inch socket, and that is to remove the anode rod. It's got a special size, and that's to keep people from tampering with it. So you'll have to order a 1 1/16 inch socket. Of course, you'll need various other things like wrenches, and I'm sure we'll have to do a few other things as we shoot the video. We'll come up with a few other items that are not shown here. And so those are the basic tools you'll need to get started. So we'll get started here in a minute, and we'll be right back. All right, I'm ready to start the job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the new hot water heater from the box by cutting along the bottom edge. So I'll do that. I'll take this off. We'll make sure the new hot water heater looks like it's undamaged, and then we'll come back and we'll see what we're going to do next. Okay, so we've unboxed the new hot water heater. The reason I purchased this one, as I had mentioned earlier, was it has the brass drain valve. That's good. Looks like a nice unit. It is kind of interesting to see that the GE label is not even straight. So I guess Mexico can't get it straight either. That's pretty funny. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the anode rod that came with this unit. This is a 12-year hot water heater, and really the only difference between 6, 9, and 12 typically is either 1 or 2 extra anode rods. This has an aluminum anode rod, and I don't use any aluminum cookware. I don't use any aluminum in my water supply, and I don't use aluminum chlorohydrate in my deodorants because aluminum leads to Alzheimer's. So I'm going to substitute the aluminum with a better one, which is made out of magnesium, because magnesium is actually good for you. So I'll show you how to do that here in a second. Okay, this socket, as I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, is 1 1/16 inches. This is the standard size for anode rods, although some of them may be 1 1/8, but almost all of them are 1 1/16. That's a standard. So up here is the anode rod. I've actually already loosened it. So I'm just going to unscrew it by hand and take the new one out. And in a second, I'll be right back, and I'll show you the one I'm going to replace it with. Here's the new magnesium anode rod. Here's the aluminum one. The magnesium one is shorter. That's not a problem because I change my rods out every 2 years. I actually open the hot water heater every year and do a chlorine flush. I use sodium hypochlorite and do a flush of my whole system, a shock flush. So that gives me an opportunity every year to check it. What I'm going to do is put some plumber's sealant on here, install this. It has to make metal-to-metal contact with the tank heater. And what this does is it's a sacrificial element. The tank is cast iron, or actually steel, and it's lined inside with ceramic, which is just like a ceramic sink. It's a high temperature process. They spray it on, heat it up, and they call it a glass lining. It has micro cracks and little chips and little spots in it where the basic steel shows through. So the idea is the sacrificial anode is used up instead of eating up the tank, and that's how you keep your tank from leaking. If you change these out every couple of years, you should have a hot water heater that'll last for a very, very long time. So I'm going to install this and I'll be right back. Okay, this is my main gas cutoff, so I'm going to cut it off here, and I'm going to lock it out and tag it out with my contractor's lockout tag out. And I also have a water cutoff over here for the water main. I'll be cutting that off in a little while, but I'm not to that point yet, so I want to keep the water on for a little while in case I have to use the restroom. So I'm going to leave that on for the moment and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have turned off the main gas line. So I'm going to turn it off here at the point of source or point of use. So that's going to come off. I'll end up taking this line loose, and I'm also going to turn this so the pilot light is off, which it's going to go off anyway because it won't have a gas source. So I'll disconnect this. Then I'm going to cut off the water up here at the top of the hot water heater, and I'm going to start draining the hot water heater. And once it's mostly drained, there's always a little leakage past that valve, so I'll cut off the main water supply. Also, while you're draining the hot water heater, you want to open up some of your faucets, the hot water side in the house, to let air back in here so it'll drain out. So it'll take a while to get this thing drained out. And also, I'm going to cut this so that I can replace this pipe. And I'm trying to think what else. That's it for right now. I'll be back in a minute with some of that stuff having been done, and we'll show you how we're going to pull this baby out of here. All right, at this point here, I've gotten the gas line taken off. I'm draining this here. And I have both the upper lines loose so that it can get air in and drain. I have this open to allow it to drain. I've cut this so I can take this off. So it's going to take quite a while to drain out. So in the meantime, I'm going to go have something to eat. Then I'll come back and we'll take this off and put the other one on, and I'll show you how to install the new one. So we'll be back. All right, note to self, hey, these things are heavy. Be careful. Well, look what I did. All right, so we got to figure this out. We'll be right back. We have the new heater in place now. I'm going to start connecting things up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a brass cap on the drain valve, just in case it leaks a little bit. It'll keep it from dripping. Note that we put a drip pan under this installation. So that's in case it drips, it'll catch it, and I'll put a waste catcher down there. And at the top where the water lines, copper water lines connect, the top of the hot water heater uses galvanized metal. So they have a little plastic piece on there, and you have to insert some special plastic washers in there, or rubber neoprene washers, to prevent the two dissimilar metals from having galvanic corrosion activity. So that's really important that you don't damage those. And so I'm going to get all this cleaned up and start hooking a few things up, and I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, at this point I've put this cap on. I've connected the hot and cold hoses, and you're going to have to make sure you connect them in the correct order. I mean, the correct side, because otherwise it won't work properly. And when I did that, I used some Teflon tape because I'm putting a copper fitting over a galvanized metal stub that comes out. And so I also put in some O-rings that I got with this kit for those particular type of connectors. And I put some Krytox grease on the O-rings. Used this to try to pull out the old O-rings, but they were completely destroyed. So it's just pieces of junk came out. And I also used some plumber thread sealant on those threads as well, just so that it won't get corroded on there and stuck so you can't get it off next time I need to change the hot water heater. So I started doing some fill, and then I stopped because I'm getting ready to connect this overpressure valve here, so I've got to do that next. So I'm just going to leave it as is, work on that, and then I'll be back. Okay, at this point, I've had a delay in doing the overflow. I'm gonna have to go get some parts. No problem. So I'm going to move to the gas right now. So I've wrapped this with gas line Teflon tape, which is yellow. It's very important that you use that. And I'm going to install this line back in here like this. So I'll do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've hooked up my gas line. I went out and took my lockout tagout off the main gas connection and turned it on to the house. I turned this gas on here, and now I'm using some soapy water. I'm going to see if any bubbles come out anywhere here. So I'm looking for leaks, and I don't see any bubbles there. So I'll check up here. So if I don't find any leaks, I'll go ahead and turn the heat on, and then we'll see what we're going to do next. So I don't think there's any leaks there. I'll observe it for a minute and see what happens. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I had tested these lines for leakage, don't find any, don't smell any. Went ahead and turned on the pilot light, and I ignited the burner. So I know all that works now. So now I have it back off again, and I'm going to install the vent up at the top. And when I get that done, I'll go ahead and ignite it, and then I'll come back later and install this overflow tube. So I'll get that done, and I'll be right back. So here's where we are right now. We're going to stop for the evening. I still need to add something here, and I'm actually going to go see if I can find a flexible hose. I never did like this plumbed in thing that's inflexible. So I'm going to check that out. Nothing leaks. I went ahead on the vents. I went ahead and put new screws in and fastened it all back together the proper way. It wasn't quite done right from the when they built the house. And also another thing I wanted to mention was I put a cup, actually a half a cup of Clorox into this water heater before I filled it with water, so that it would shock the system with chlorine. And so it'll smell like chlorine for half a day, but that's okay. And so I'll finish this up, and we'll show you what we ended up finishing doing here after we get back from going looking for parts. So we finished doing the water heater now. The installation is complete. We ended up hard plumbing this. It's kind of a pain because when they build this, they put this here first before they sheetrock, and they put all that pipe in, and then they sheetrock over it. So it was kind of a difficult task to do it once it's already in. But we got it done. Sweated the pipes, everything's fine. So that's it, and thanks for watching. Tschüss.